Okay. So it's my very great pleasure tonight to introduce somebody that most of us already are very familiar with in the TS, Pam Evans MBE. Pam is president of the Swansea Lodge of the Theosophical Society, which she has worked tirelessly for many years. She's also given talks at summer school. Pam is the founder and director of the multi-award-winning Peace Mala educational charity for world peace and was recognised in the Queen's Birthday Honours list in 2019. Peace Mala is an educational project that promotes friendship, respect and peace between people of all lifestyles, cultures, faiths and none. It cuts through all forms of prejudice and celebrates what makes us different from each other. Pam had been head of religious studies at Llanelli's Coed Cais School, but following New York's Twin Towers terrorist attack in 2001, she set about establishing the Peace Mala organization, spurred into action after witnessing young Muslim pupils facing bullying from their peers and prejudice that soon spread to other faith minorities. The project has high-profile supporters, including His Holiness the Dalai Lama, the previous Archbishop of Canterbury, Dr. Owen Williams, and the late Archbishop Emeritus Desmond Tutu. The authentic teachings of Jesus in the Aramaic language are of particular interest to Pam, as sadly so much has been lost, or more likely deliberately hidden. Jesus' original teachings certainly resonate with much of theosophy, as well as the core messages of world faiths. Pam's talk this evening is entitled Exploring the Hidden Teachings of Yeshua. So I will now hand you over to Pam. I will attempt to mute everybody. Not quite sure. Mute all. There we go. Try that one. Mute all, but obviously ask Pam to unmute herself, please. Right. Are we able to hear you, Pam? Yes, I think we can.
It can be a little nerve-wracking, can't it, with technology? At least I find it so. Okay, so I'm going to start off really by asking the question, who was Yeshua? Who was he really? And I've been reflecting back to my childhood and my first encounter with him. So I think those of us who are of a certain age, my age group, those of us of a certain age may well have attended a Christian church or a chapel when we were children. It's very likely. And we may have also attended Sunday school where, well, my memory tells me that we would have been taught that Jesus, from the Greek Jesus, was the one and only Son of God, that he died for our sins in his barbaric death of crucifixion, that he will return at the end of time to save those who have accepted him as their Lord and Savior, and that he will bring them into an everlasting paradise called the Kingdom of God. Now, and let us not forget, all others will be cast into eternal damnation. Dear me. Sad to say that certain Pentecostal evangelical groups still promote that teaching. And I know there's a lot more to it than that, but I think in essence, that's the basics. Now then, the Septuagint, some of you will know, this was the earliest Greek translation of books from the Hebrew Bible. This is where the names Joshua, or in Hebrew, Yeshua, and Jesus have become confused. So this is an interesting thing. According to scholars, now I've been digging around in lots of books, doing quite a lot of research for this. And scholars Liddell and Scott, according to them, the Greeks did not have a name that was close to Joshua. Now, and they came up with this name, Jesus. Now, Jesus is a Greek name that actually means healer. And it's from ancient Greek mythology. Now, things are starting to get confused already. What on earth is going on here? Now, perhaps you, like me, as a child, you might have started asking difficult questions about these beliefs, including stories about the miracles and resurrection of Jesus. And I also found many of the Old Testament stories problematic. And so at the age of 11, and I remember this very clearly, coming home from Sunday school and informing my parents that I would not be going there again. My father, who was not a churchgoer, put down his Sunday paper, looked at me, he said, "Oh, what's going on then, Pam? Why is that?" And I explained it was because none of the Sunday school teachers could answer my questions. Oh, I must have been a real pain. Furthermore, and I remember this clearly also, they expected me to believe everything written in the Bible because it was the word of God, and that I was not to question or doubt it. To do so was to commit some sort of unforgivable blasphemy. That for me put the tin hat on it. It insulted my intelligence. And so I decided, I mean, I had to go one step further, didn't I? So I rejected it all. And so there I was at the age of 11, up until the age of 18. Something was happening. I was still trying to find out answers to things. And I met a remarkable A-level teacher who opened my eyes to another way of looking at Jesus and the Bible. So this was progressive theology. She upset quite a number of the students in the A-level class who were of the, shall we say, evangelical, Pentecostal mindset. But to me, wow, this was a breath of fresh air. And I instantly became very, very interested. Okay, so began my spiritual quest to find out who Jesus was and to try and make sense of the Bible. Now, as for God, that would take a bit longer, a bit of a longer journey. And now in my senior years, I think I'm beginning to get somewhere. But for the purpose of this talk, I'm going to concentrate on Jesus, whose real name was Yeshua ha-Nazari. Now then. In recent years, much has been written about Yeshua's possible connection with the Essenes and perhaps the Nazarenes, a mystery school which grew out of the Essene community on Mount Carmel and near the Dead Sea. Nazari, or ha-Nazari, is Aramaic for Nazarite, meaning the initiated who reveals what is hidden. So it's got nothing to do with the town of Nazareth at all. Okay. In the Essene and Nazarene communities, men and women were equal. They worked in total harmony. Male teachers, female teachers, healers, they just worked together. Mutual respect. I find that astonishingly wonderful. Okay. Now then, some of you may have heard of the Nag Hammadi scriptures, the Coptic Nag Hammadi scriptures found in 1945. And one of those is called the Gospel of Truth. And this threw an astonishing spotlight on metaphysical insights into the ancient mystery traditions. including, here's another word, the therapeutai, the Jewish ascetics who lived in a community close to Alexandria in the 1st century CE. And also the mysterious Essenes and Nazarenes. So we've got 3 groups there: Therapeutai, Essenes, Nazarenes, mystery groups, mystical, fascinating. Now then, the Therapeutai, that means healers. They were an ancient order of mystics who lived in many parts of the ancient world, but as I've said already, were found especially in Alexandria, the capital of Ptolemaic Egypt. This pre-Christian group of Jewish ascetics is known today from the writings of Philo of Alexandria. Some of you might have heard of him, a Hellenized Jewish philosopher who synthesized Platonic, Stoic, and Jewish ideas. Philo developed the concept of logos to mean the divine mind. Now then, in his De Vitae Contemplativa on the contemplative life, written around 10 CE, Philo compared the Therapeutai to the Essenes, as both sects were known for their exemplary religious devotion and ascetic practices. According to Philo, the Therapeutai were widely distributed in the ancient world, with one of their major settlements being in the area of the Lake Mareotis in Egypt, not far from Alexandria. Now then, some of you may or may not have heard of this gentleman, an amazing writer, Lars Muhl. I discovered Lars quite a few years ago, and he's actually endorsed the Peace Marla project. So you can find him on our website and link into his website if you wish. He has been fascinated by Jesus, Yeshua, all his life, and he has produced a number of fascinating books. So he's the author particularly of The Law of Light and the O manuscript. Now then, according to Lars, Mariam the Magdalena, some of you have heard of her, I'm sure you all have, and Yeshua HaNazari were Nazarenes. That's his claim. He further claims that Mariam was an initiate on an equal footing with Yeshua, and that she probably received her education from the Therapeutai of Alexandria. Magdal means the exalted, an initiation name indicating that she was the chosen, a spiritually advanced teacher. Lars Muhl has another theory. I don't know whether to agree with this, but who knows, because we're going way back in time. He is of the opinion that she was also initiated as a moon priestess at the temple of Heliopolis. Fascinating stuff, eh? Wow, start digging around in this, and what are you going to find out? Now then, it is very possible that Mariam and Yeshua worked together. Many of the Gnostic Gospels touch on this, and what people have been researching into. This is arising now. People are becoming aware of this possibility. And I feel that it feels right to me. They work together, healing and teaching. And do you remember the story in Luke's Gospel of the woman who anointed Jesus' feet? And there was a hell of a rumpus with the disciples who were outraged, and the wastage of this very, very expensive oil and so forth. Anyway, it's quite possible that it was her. And there's a huge meaning to what that was all about. I haven't got time to go into it, but anyway, that may well have been her. In the Gnostic Gospels, She is described as Yeshua's companion and most beloved disciple, the only one who truly understood his teachings. The Gospel of Philip states that she is the disciple Yeshua loved the most and the one he kissed on the mouth. Her closeness to Yeshua resulted in tensions with Peter. And there's a big story to all of that. After the crucifixion of Yeshua, she was the first to see him. I'm sure you remember that story. Sadly, the male disciples rejected her rightful place as the successor of Yeshua. She was excluded from the group and had to flee. And according to stories and legend, it is claimed that she traveled to southern France, where she lived and taught until an advanced age. There's a lot more about that, and I'm sure some of you are already aware of that. Coming back to the therapeutai. Now then, Toddy asked me to look into the possibility of any Buddhist influence on the teachings of Yeshua. And yes, there are very strong possibilities. Let's see what you make of this. Some scholars have suggested that the therapeutai may have been influenced by Emperor Ashoka's Buddhist missionaries from ancient India. Ashoka the Great, you might have heard of him, phenomenal emperor. And this empire was vast. So this is from 304 BCE to 232 BCE. He was the ruler of the Maurya Empire, the Indian subcontinent then. He renounced violence. He introduced a policy that established welfare as a right for all citizens. He promoted religious tolerance and core universal values, including respect for all life. The similarities between the monastic practices of the therapeutai and Buddhist monastic practices have led to suggestions that the therapeutai were in fact Buddhist monks who had reached Alexandria, descendants then of Ashoka's emissaries to the west. Now, the ancient city of Alexandria in Egypt had Buddhist missionary activity around 250 BCE. Egypt had intense trade and cultural contacts with India during that period. And this is described by Periplus, the Aetherian Sea, an unknown Greek-speaking Egyptian travel writer. He writes about it. So these Buddhist missionaries were there in ancient Egypt. I think that's incredible. Now, according to the Gospel of Matthew, some of you might remember this legend. Who knows what is real and what isn't? According to Matthew, in chapter 2, Jesus' family fled to Egypt and settled there. And for all we know, he was there for a considerable time of his childhood, at least. Who knows? Egypt was at the end of the Silk Road, remember that. So as a result of its role in trade with the East, Egypt was prosperous and enriched with religious diversity. It was a melting pot. We know this stuff here, isn't there, for ancient theosophy too? Yeah? Okay. Now then, in 1995, I came across a remarkable, stunning book. And I remember one of my first Buddhist friends, who was principal of the School of Nursing here in Swansea. She set up the degree in counselling at the university. Pat was fabulous. And she'd came to me in quite a very excited mood, that she'd gone into the university bookshop. She'd seen this book. She said she was so struck, she nearly fell over something. And this was a book entitled, you can still get hold of it, I think, The Original Jesus, The Buddhist Sources of Christianity, published by Elma Kruber, a psychologist, and Holger Kirsten, a specialist in religious history. They claim in this book that Buddhism had a substantial influence on the life and teachings of Jesus. Wow. Gruber and Kirstein claim that Jesus was influenced by the Theraputai that I've just mentioned, who may have been Buddhist, or at least influenced by Buddhism. The Buddhist teachers then of the Theravadan school of Buddhism living in Egypt at that time. Who knows? It's a possibility. They further declare that the Buddhist effect on Jesus' teaching is overwhelming. In John's Gospel, for example, Buddhist ideas repeat verse after verse. And in 1971, theologian Edgar Bruns published an entire book entitled The Christian Buddhism of St. John, which astonished Christians and especially the church. Well, I'm sure you can imagine. And I'm sure some said, no. Okay, we go on. Let's have a look at this, a little example. The Buddha said, whoever sees the Dharma sees me. Jesus said, he that seeth me seeth him that sent me. Now, there's far more astonishing comparisons than that. The Dharma is the great cosmic law underlying our world, which corresponds to the concept of the word, the Logos. In the prologue to his gospel, John declares, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The Oxford New Testament scholar Barnett Hillman Streeter established as early as the 1930s that the moral teaching of the Buddha has 4 remarkable resemblances to the Sermon on the Mount. Another book, we're coming a little later now, 1997, Jesus and Buddha, the Parallel Sayings, edited by Margus Borg, a leading scholar on Jesus. This remarkable book explores the striking similarities between the teachings of the Buddha and Jesus. And when I loaned my copy of this book to an Anglican priest, it took him a year to return it to me. I had to keep asking for it. He remained astonished with its revelations. He couldn't quite get his head around it. It is fantastic. Page after page after page. What did the Buddha say? What did Jesus say? Wow. They're just about identical. And bear in mind that the Buddha lived 500 years before Jesus. Okay. Coming back to Lars Moule that I mentioned earlier on. According to him, the parents of Yeshua were Essenes. And like the Theraputai, the Essenes were claimed to be outstanding healers who understood the powers of herbs and crystals. They were strict vegetarians. They opposed the custom of animal sacrifice, and they lived in communities where everything was shared. They dressed in white. They took ritual baths. They farmed the land, and they understood astrology and prophecy. According to their teachings, God is a pure creative energy of unconditional love. Historians of the time describe them as masters of belief, truth and uprightness, true servants of peace. That's Josephus. And then Pliny, he said, they are a race apart, more remarkable than any other in the world. The word Yeshua itself is Hebrew and it means God saves. He, to me, stands out as a Jewish mystic with a profound wisdom and understanding of how the cosmos works. Some claim he was the expected Messiah of the Jews, a reincarnated teacher of righteousness, the anointed one, which in Greek is Christos, and in English, the Christ. So an anointed one, a chosen one, to bring a message that will transform and liberate. The concept of an enlightened teacher who incarnates from the higher planes of consciousness to help those of us struggling on the earth plane, as you all know, as Theosophists, you know, this is found in spiritual traditions of the Far East. In the Vedic tradition, they are called avatars, enlightened souls, manifestations of the heavenly source in human form. One of the oldest Vedic scriptures, I'm sure you know it, the Bhagavad Gita, states, when goodness ceases to exist and injustice seizes power, I will incarnate myself as avatar. In every age, I reveal myself in order to protect the good, destroy all evil, and establish the truth. Okay. Worth considering historically is that as a result of their captivity under the Egyptians and the Babylonians, the Jews may have been influenced by new perceptions of the divine power of the cosmos. It is possible that esoteric beliefs from Persia concerning the coming of an avatar may have been adopted by the Essenes. Prophecies concerning a future Messiah are also, of course, found in the Jewish Tanakh, what we call the Old Testament. Among the scrolls found at Qumran, near the Dead Sea, was the Book of Enoch. Some scholars have suggested that the Therapeutae and the Essenes were deeply influenced by this apocryphal book of Enoch, and also another book called the Book of Jubilees. Why? Due to their mystic value and their allegorical interpretations. The prophet Enoch describes the vision of the Son of Man being named in the presence of the Lord of Spirits before the sun and stars of heaven and the creation of the world. This being is the elect one who will be the hope of those who are troubled of heart. Could it be that Yeshua was indeed this very Messiah long awaited for by the Essenes? The Son of Man who would show Jews and Gentiles alike how to discover the divine within each one of us and how to love each other unconditionally. Yeshua's ability to heal the sick, walk on water, change water into wine, raise the dead, and teach a world-shattering message of empowerment and transformation explain his enduring appeal. But have we been given the whole truth by leaders of the religion which became known as Christianity? Is the Christian tradition yet to discover the real message Yeshua shared with his closest friends? To begin with, let us realize that Yeshua spoke in Aramaic, a language that has several layers of meaning that can be mystical, metaphorical, and profoundly intellectual all at once. It's the most astonishing language. The books of the New Testament that we are familiar with are English translations from Greek, a language so different from Aramaic that much of the original teachings of Yeshua have sadly been lost. Aramaic presents an understanding of the cosmos that is transformative and liberating. Yeshua taught that the cosmos has an intelligence and a creative force that permeates everything. Have any of you been taught that by a Christian priest? I haven't. That's never been said. Major traditions of the Middle East, Judaism, Christianity, Islam, what we call the Abrahamic faiths, they use words to describe this cosmic intelligence that probably stem from the same source of language. El, or Al, which means that or the one. From this root rise the sacred names Elat, which is Old Canaanite, Elohim, which is Hebrew, Alacha, which is Aramaic, and Allah, which is Arabic. It's what the ancient mystery schools called the heavenly source. All of those words are referring to the heavenly source. And coming back to the therapeutai and their scenes, because I feel this is profoundly important. Central to the therapeutai and Essene's spiritual path was their understanding of the creative power of Shum, S-H-N, Shum. It's the root word in Aramaic, Debwashmaya, Shma, Shma. It's in the middle of it, Debwashmaya. It means heavenly. In the Gospel of Luke and the apocryphal Gospel of Thomas, Yeshua states that the kingdom of heaven, in Arabic, Malkuta Deshmaya, is within you and everywhere around you. It's not separate. We're part of it. And you find this in Luke chapter 17 and the Gospel of Thomas chapter 3. From this, we understand that the kingdom of heaven that Yeshua kept talking about is here and now and within us. It's nothing separate. It is a transpersonal state of consciousness which permeates and surrounds everything that is sentient, all living beings, including humankind. Everything is surrounded by an energy field of light, sound, and vibration. The primal divine spark of created life is the energy field that each one of us fills with the auras that surround us. This cosmic life-giving energy works constantly and eternally. This is what he taught. Again, I've never been told that by a Christian priest. The prologue to John's Gospel, where he speaks of the Word, which was with God at the beginning, and that all things were made by this. Shum is the Word, the divine spark that gives life and is filled with light. Yeshua warns that this light must never be hidden under a bushel, but must be allowed to shine. Remember, it's within us. It's within each one of us. We are all part of the one. This is what he taught. We are all part of the one. The more we become aware of this, the quicker humankind will find its higher self and start working together for the greater good of all. As Chief Seattle of the Suquamish and Duwamish tribes so wisely said, man did not weave the web of life. He is merely a strand in it. Whatever he does to the web, he does to himself. Oh, my Lord, if only our world politicians and leaders could wake up to this truth, wouldn't it transform everything? By exploring the Aramaic teachings of Yeshua, we gain a profound insight into his mystical understanding of the creative energy of the cosmos. In his prayer, which we know as the Lord's Prayer, he opens with the words, Abuun, Debuashmaya. Abuun is a derivative of the word Abba, used for the personal father. However, its original meaning does not have a gender and is better understood as meaning divine parent, and suggests a cosmic process of birthing or creation. Now then, I'm coming on to mention another person that I have the profoundest respect for, and I have been in contact with him on more than one occasion, and especially when I was working on this little book. And that is Dr. Neil Douglas Klotz. He's been exploring the Aramaic and Syriac languages for over 40 years in his quest to better understand what Yeshua taught his followers. And in his wonderful book, I can't recommend it highly enough, Prayers of the Cosmos, Meditations on the Aramaic Words of Jesus, is published originally by HarperCollins in 1990. He explains that Abuun, the very first word chanted in the prayer, has 4 parts to its meaning. Ah, it means the absolute, the only being, the pure oneness and unity, the source of all power and stability, the oneness. Ah, next comes the birthing, a creation, a flow of blessing, as if from the interior of this oneness to us. And then we have the breath or spirit that carries this flow, echoing the sound of breathing and including all forces that we now call magnetism, wind, electricity, and more. This sound is linked to the Aramaic phrase ruksha, dekwosha, which was later translated as Holy Spirit. It's deep stuff. And then we come to the vibration of this creative breath from oneness as it touches and interpenetrates form. There must be a substance that this force touches, moves, and changes. This sound echoes the earth and the body here vibrates as we intone, that's us personally, as we chant it, the whole name slowly, Abwoon. I'm sure some of you chant the It's the same thing. This is Aramaic. In the prayer, Abwoon is followed by the Bwashmaya, where, as stated earlier, we find the central root shum, shum, the word shem, linked with light, vibration, and sound, which makes Abwoon known throughout the entire cosmos. Abwoon is the entire sphere of existence of which each and every one of us is a part. Think of that. That is God. It's not separate. It's all of us. It is everything that is. Abwoon. The Aramaic version of the Lord's Prayer reminds us what is important, and it contains the central themes in Yeshua's teaching. For his research, Dr. Neil Douglas Klotz used the Peshitta version of the Gospels written in Syriac Aramaic, believed to be the oldest and most authoritative version of the Bible. Peshitta, by the way, means sincere, true, simple. And then I'm bringing somebody else in here who did work back in the 1930s, Dr. George Lamsa, pioneering Aramaic scholar. He claimed that Yeshua's teachings were first recorded in Greek. Why? Well, that's what was going on at the time. Once things started moving out of Israel as we know it now, moving with St. Paul and all the rest of it into the Greek and Roman world. And unfortunately, something started to happen which prompted anti-Semitism. We have that happening. And maybe some of you are aware, it shouldn't be a shock to you, that before the British occupation of India and Egypt, the Western world knew very little about the East. Most publications relative to Eastern Christianity were written in America, in England, and Germany. And they were often based on conjecture, and they were highly biased. They claimed that the Greek versions of the gospel were the most authoritative, and underlines again the prejudice and ignorance held against Indian and Middle Eastern peoples and their languages and culture. It's so sad. Confusions also arose when translations from Greek and Latin versions of the gospel were completely misunderstood. Middle Eastern traditions existed for thousands of years before Yeshua arrived on the scene. His use of sacred phrases suggests that a native mystical tradition existed with the peoples of the desert before the Hebrew Jewish belief system evolved. There's so much more. It's profound stuff. It's mind-blowing once you start digging into it. Dr. Neil Douglas Klotz has kindly given me permission to use his transliteration and original translation of the Lord's Prayer from the Peshitta version of Matthew chapter 6, verses 9 to 13, and Luke chapter 11, verses 2 to 4, published, as I mentioned earlier on, in this phenomenal book, Prayers of the Cosmos, Meditations on the Aramaic Words of Jesus. I do recommend you get it. Now, in the time of Jesus, when he taught it, when he prayed it, it would have been chanted. And if any of you know any Muslims, they will chant from the Holy Quran. The call to prayer is chanted. Jews chant their prayers at the Western Wall. Have you seen them do it? Why? It's a body prayer that has vibrational energy. It's like chanting the chanting the Abwoon. It's a vibrational energy that is linking you in to the whole cosmos. I'm going to have a go at it. My Aramaic is not brilliant, so forgive me if I make a mess, but I'm going to try and do this, and then afterwards I will read to you Dr. Neil Douglas Clocks's translation of it, but it's many layers. This will be a simple translation, but actually each line has a whole page of what it means. Okay, here we go. Abun Deboashmaya Neskodashmach Tete Malkuta Nechwe Sebianach Ai Kanabuashmaya Alf Baha Haulan Lachma Dasu Kwanyan Yaumana Washpo Kulan Koiban Wachtahin I Kenadafknan Spokwan Lachin Labein Wela Tachlan Nies Yuna Elapatsa en min Bisha Metol de Lachi Malkuta Wachela Watish Puchta Lachlam Almin The transliteration from that, from Neil. O Bertha, Father, Mother of the Cosmos, you create all that moves in light. Focus your light within us. Make it useful as the rays of a beacon show the way. Create your reign of unity now through our fiery hearts and willing hands. Your one desire then acts with ours, as in all light, so in all forms. Grant what we need each day in bread and insight, subsistence for the call of growing life. Loose the cords of mistakes binding us, as we release the strands we hold of others' guilt. Let us not forget. Let us not enter into forgetfulness, but free us from unripeness. From you is born all ruling will, the power and the life to do, the song that beautifies all From age to age, it renews. Truly power to these statements. May they be the source from which all my actions grow, sealed in trust and faith. Amen. A last point. It is interesting to learn from Dr. Neil that the word Malkuta is based on the same root name for the great mother of the Middle East, thousands of years before Yeshua. He claims the ancients saw in the earth and all around them a divine quality that everywhere takes responsibility and says, I can. Later, those who expressed this quality clearly were recognized as natural leaders, what we call queens or kings. I will end by suggesting and hoping, may we all find the divine within each one of us and say, I can, as we work together to help create a more compassionate and just world. Thank you.
Right, can we all unmute ourselves now? I don't know if this allow participants to mute. Right. Are you able to hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Right. So if everybody would like to unmute themselves, and would we have any questions to ask Pam? Or any comments? Because I have to say, I found that mind-boggling, because it's just so amazing. I so agree with you, Pam, about Sunday school and what was drummed into us and the fact that we couldn't question anything. But now the possibilities are endless. And personally, I think we were led to find our own way through this and not follow some script, but just to feel our way through. Romy.
Pam, did you ever hear about the talk that was given at the spring conference from Petra about Jesus?
No, I missed that.
Well, I think you two would make a phenomenal force for good in terms of comparing and contrasting. And she put forward, I don't have the information to hand, and I wouldn't want to even try and give even a smattering, but I just know that Petra's depth of knowledge and the breadth of her studying would complement what you have done on your talk, and to be honest, puts a very different spin as you have done, but with other insights which I have never come across, and I think you would be quite bowled over by it if you ever get the chance to liaise with her or get her talk from the Transpennine the spring conference. I'm sure it was recorded, but sorry, I've got my dad now walking in. Sorry, a minute. Yeah. Okay. All right. But yeah. So I don't know. Do you know Petra?
Yes,
Pam?
I do. I do.
Yeah, okay. Well, do you have her email?
No, I don't.
Okay. Would you like me to link you two together?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Please.
Okay. Okay. I think that would be really beneficial.
Thank you.
I'd like to say as well that when you were talking about the, if you like, the collaboration between Jesus and Mary Magdalene, I mean, there's been lots of things that have started opening our ideas about that. I mean, dare I say, Dan Brown and the
Oh, yes.
his
Yes,
book.
yes.
But, you know, they may be slightly off, but it's still opened up the possibility.
Yes, indeed. Indeed, indeed.
Yes, I mean, this is
And a lot of research has gone on about her probably landing up in the south of France. An awful lot has been looked into that. We do get people jumping on the bandwagon, and it goes a bit berserk and claiming they're channeling her, and I don't know what all. I would prefer to stick to serious academic research. But a lot is opening up about Mary Magdalene as we know her. Phenomenal healer and teacher and partner of Jesus or Yeshua, in whichever way, whatever their relationship was, they were certainly very, very close. And she understood his teaching. And sadly, what happened afterwards, well, dare I say that it got hijacked and a bit twisted. And then we have Saint Paul, of course, who never knew Jesus anyway. And the way it all went into the Roman world and changed completely. And so much of this profound, beautiful teaching was lost. You know, his message was to empower and transform, and for people to realize that the divine is within, and that we're all linked. Everything is linked. Theosophy teaches that, of course. But the Christian church at the moment doesn't particularly. No. And so we have, unfortunately, this separation. Yes, Romy.
But I think that's why it's so important for people like yourselves who've got have got to grips with the overall teachings of a number of different religions, and there aren't that many people that have studied to that level that you have, and can present that, Pam, which is why talks like this are so important, and your little booklet, and it's
this one.
Yeah, so that we can refer, because we will have heard it in talks, but we can't quote it. But if we have the little book, which is why that's...
Well, you know, the purpose of this little book is to share in groups and to discuss, to share, to debate, and go further and find out more. It is an introduction, isn't it?
Yeah. But it gives reassurance as well that the information that you're putting forward or chatting about has got substance to it, because you've done the donkey work. You've got the references.
Oh yes, it's real. It's not made up mumbo jumbo. This is real.
Yeah. The same as Petra's talks. It's all backed up with, it's a proper referenced talk based on the literature.
Yeah.
It's not opinion.
Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There are 7 major books that have done research on all this that I would recommend if people wanted to take it further and find out more. But You know, Elaine Pagels produced a book on the Gnostic Gospels in 1979. So she was the great authority on this. So there's your starting point. And then I've mentioned Dr. Neil Douglas Klotz with what he's done. He's bringing out a new book next month. And I'm really looking forward to what he has to say now. And then we've got the Gospel of Thomas. You can get hold of it. That's worth reading. There's loads.
But I really appreciate
Start digging around, and you will find that there are amazing books that have been written where people have done serious research.
I really appreciate your efforts and energies and enthusiasm and commitment to putting that information in a palatable form, Pam, because sometimes it can just be a little bit overwhelming. And
I try my best, Romy. As a former teacher, it's my job to try and keep it as simple as possible. There's no point in going into great depths of academia and, you know, intellectual terminology and Lord knows, and, you know, for goodness sake, let's get to the point as quickly as we can.
Well done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, I think Donna is trying to ask a question. Is that right, Donna?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask Pam, I did put it in the notes. Where did you get that little book from, Pam? Where can we get the book from? Your book?
Oh, this one?
Yes.
From us. Everything that I have written, the funds from sales go into the Peace Marler project.
Okay.
So if you well, it's back to front with the camera. Sorry, but
I made a note of it.
If you drop a line to info@peacemarler.org.uk, that'll come to the office here, and we can direct you in the right way. You can also go onto the Peace Marler website.
Yep.
And it's a drop-down menu, and somewhere up the top will say purchasing. Click on that and it'll come down. There'll be the educational stuff for schools and so forth with the project, but also all of my books. So from info@peacemarler, all joined up, PEACEMALA.org.uk.
Yeah, I've really appreciated, because I've met you a few times at the Theosophical meetings in the past, but I've had quite a lot of what I would say are spiritual experiences, but I never really had the academia to go with it. And it wasn't until I joined the Theosophical Society, it was almost like, you know, when you do driving tests, you have a theory and a practical, and I'd had lots of practical and I hadn't got the theory that went in with it. So when I started going to the Theosophical Society and people were talking, it was like, well, oh, okay, then that's the theory that goes with what I've experienced. So what I've really appreciated tonight with your talk is you've given lots and lots of very subtle references to authors and chapters, and it's for further investigation. Yeah, it's like everything you were saying to me is spot on.
Thank you. Well, as I said, Prayers of the Cosmos, Meditations on the Aramaic Words of Jesus by Neil Douglas Klotz is mind-blowing. That was the first. It was actually a Christian Cistercian Anglican nun who drew my attention to that book shortly after it came out. And she held it up and she said, "Are you aware of this?" And I said, "I recognize the modern icon. It's one of my favorites." I said, "That's Christ of the Desert. I know that. It's a modern icon." But I said, as for the book, no. "Oh, do get it, Pam, do." So I sent for it, and I was flying to New York. So my flight to New York, I read the book. Wow, it absolutely blew me away. I thought, my God, this is what he was teaching.
Yeah.
This was his message. And it's been buried.
Yeah. And a lot,
Sorry.
You can sing, can't you? You're a singer, so
Well, I
could
have a go.
feel,
Oh yeah, Pam
yeah,
can sing.
I feel energy, you see, so I could feel the vibrations when you were singing. I'd got my headphones on, and it was like, oh my God, this, and I went into a really deep.
Well, do you know, Neil Douglas Klotz is trying to encourage people to form groups.
Yes.
To find out what were the real teachings of Yeshua, and then to learn how to chant it together.
Yeah.
Can you imagine the energy it gives off?
Yeah. And you mentioned Lars Merle as well.
Yes.
Again,
he's done a lot of work as well.
Yeah, and he has got some vocal videos on YouTube. And again, you can feel
his wife does a lot of vocal energetic chanting and stuff for healing.
Yes, yeah. But everything you were saying was just sort of like ping, 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 ping. Things were pinging. And he's like, oh, I've got a book here now full of little notes that have got, like, you know, chapter this and people, you know, authors and things to sort of reference back on, because to sort of, again, check some of the things that I've been given, but not through.
I mean, within my little book, there is an introduction there. I know it's back to front, but on the Aramaic teaching of Jesus. Anyway, there are bits and bobs in there that hopefully you would find interesting, and you could
definitely
take your research further from that.
And I just wanted to say thank you, because as Pam knows, I'm not from Wales, so it was because Pam posted that she was going to do the talk, and I asked if she would send me the link, and I think it was Kate that sent it, so I'm really thankful. Thank you very much for that. Thank you.
Well, I'm glad you were able to join up with us, Donna.
Yeah, and you know, any time where we've got a talk on that you'd like to join in, you're more than welcome.
Oh yes, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? I know there is one thing I'd like to ask, please, Pam. You were mentioning the book, The Original Jesus.
Yes.
What came after that? Buddhist?
Oh, right. What I could do, Kate, if you want, I could send an email with a recommended reading list.
Oh, that would be good.
I could do that
to people,
because I've chosen 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 books that are worth reading. But that Original Jesus, which my Buddhist friend nearly fell over in the bookshop, she was so excited, and we all were. And I said, "Wow, is that a surprise?" Okay, The Original Jesus, The Buddhist Sources of Christianity. That's the full title.
Right.
And it's Elmer Gruber, Gruber, and Holger Kirsten, Kersten, published by Element in 1995. I'm sure if you did a little look on Amazon, you'd find it.
Okay, that's super.
Very, very interesting book.
Yeah.
I mean, there's other stuff too. And I think it's Holger Kirsten did it with somebody else. The theory that Jesus may well have traveled to India. Some of you may be aware of that also. Goodness knows. I mean, those are the hidden years. We know very little about him.
Can I share something with you about that Jesus in India? Have you
Sorry?
heard, you know, you just mentioned about Jesus being in India?
Well, a theory, a possibility.
Yeah, a theory. There's a gentleman called Peter Dawkins, not the atheist man, Peter Dawkins. He's got it's called Zoance, so science, but Zoance. And I've been to some of his talks, and he's very intellectual, into all the arts and all the mystery teachings within artwork. and a lot of the I say the mystery teachings. But he actually went to India and was with some or what do they call them? Is it the rishi or gurus? That's it, because we don't have gurus, but gurus.
Yeah.
And he was shown documentation, he said, that if the world was to see it, it would blow the church apart about Jesus being in India. So, you know, and he's a very well respected man. He's from the Francis Bacon Trust.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, all of this stuff, the original Aramaic teachings of Jesus and how he was influenced, it's been hidden.
Yeah. But I think it's
so sad.
And I mean, the surface, you know, now, isn't it?
Sorry?
I said in all these different areas, it's all coming to the surface. And I think when people start to put the jigsaw puzzles to pieces together, the truth, again, they said the truth will set you free. We haven't had the truth. No. And now it's beginning to be seen. So
it's coming to the surface.
Yeah.
And young people in particular, and certainly the youngsters involved with the Peace Mala project, exploring the world religions and concepts of God and all the rest of it, they are beginning to realize what is held in common, what is shared. And what is shared, of course, is the truth. And I came to that conclusion in my teens, and I thought, there must be an ultimate truth. And I was right, because I discovered, yes, eventually, it occurs in the major faiths. It's sort of been buried to some degree, but it is there. And of course, the essential, I mean, when I talk to kids, I say, right now then, what do you think God is? And I said, before you even start to say anything to me, if you think that God is like a Father Christmas up in the clouds, some old guy with a long white beard and whatnot, I said, let's kick that into touch straight away. That ain't it at all. And then we talk about it. And actually, I was invited to a school because this big thing we're going to do in St. Mary's Church on the 20th, I'm doing something very dangerous with a school. They're brilliant. We are going to do 3 Hindu mantras for peace. We're going to chant it in like a song version. So before we started practicing this, the teacher said, you must explain a bit about Hinduism. You must explain a bit about the sacred Om. So I did. And from that, the children got an understanding that the divine, as Jesus, Yeshua taught, is within. I said, it's inside us. It's inside me. It's inside you. It's inside your cat, your dog, the trees, whatever. I said, it's an intelligence. It's a creative energy. We're all part of it. We are all linked. And if we can send out positivity and compassion and kindness, wow, we transform everything. So I said to them, I said, when we do this in the ceremony for world peace, I said, people sat in the church, the big church, won't realize, but you will know, I will know, that we will be sending out a vibrational energy of peace and blessing to everyone there. But I said, further, I said, in your mind, imagine the town, the country, the British Isles, take it further, the whole planet. We're going to send that energy of peace and blessing and healing to planet Earth and everything that lives here. So the kids are very excited about that. I don't know what the priests will make of it. I mean, the Christian clergy will probably, well, I don't know, perhaps they like it. Anyway, they'll have a translation. There's nothing to be offended about. We're not invoking Hindu deities or anything. Although I'd be happy to do that, but I won't. Ah, dear me.
Oh, well, let's hope it all goes really, really
Yes,
well.
it will. It will. It's just all the
Yeah.
worry and the anxiety behind the scenes of dealing with all sorts of things. And oh my God.
Well, dealing with negativity, isn't
All the
it?
human stuff.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, we are. You know, you come slap up against it and you think, okay, but we're going to carry on. We're going to do it anyway. And there we are. So I'm sure that people present will be profoundly touched by what we do. Certainly, when we have done it in the past, it's had a profound effect on people who've been present.
Yeah.
Prior to, they might not have a clue, or they might be a bit skeptical or whatever. I mean, when we did the event at Llandaff Cathedral, the first one, the dean and the head verger came to me afterwards and said, "We've had a steep learning curve." Oh, I thought, thank God for that. Because prior to, there were objections to, oh, you can't do this and you can't do that and you can't do the other. They were terrified. I don't know what they thought was going to happen. And that's ignorance and fear. And out of it comes prejudice and all the other ugly things. And this is where education is vital.
Yes.
It's the only way we're going to transform anything is through education. And with education comes better understanding. And if we can get youngsters to realize we all belong, we're all linked, we are all part of the cosmic divine energy and intelligence.
Indeed.
We've got to keep trying, haven't we?
Absolutely. Well, it's been a great evening. I can tell everybody's enjoyed it. We've had some very enthusiastic questions and comments. And on behalf of everybody, Pam, we thank you very, very much for all your dedication and your insight. And we would very much like to have a list of those books from you, and I can pass it out to everybody.
I can do that.
Great.
I'll send that to you. And also the link to my little book.
Yes.
Some of you might like the new little book on Madame Blavatsky for children as well. And I think actually Tim Wyatt, who's taken over now as editor of Esoterica, he's going to write a longer review on my little Blavatsky book for youngsters. And again, it's for young people, but it's also for people who maybe haven't, well, lots of people have never heard of her and they don't know what theosophy is. So it's an introduction.
Yeah, indeed. So, and yeah, best wishes for the 20th.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so I'm going to complete everything here and end the meeting. And thank you for coming along, everybody. Very good to see you. And,
thank you very much.
And thank you so much, Pam.
Pleasure, my pleasure.
Good
Take
night,
good care, everyone.
Yes.
Keep safe and keep well.
Yes, indeed. Bye-bye.
Bye then. Bye-bye.